It's hard to get internships in college. It's difficult. But if you're given the opportunity to get an internship, I highly recommend everyone do one because the two uphill battles that you're always going to be fighting is everyone's going to want more experience than you have. The job posting is going to say we want 1 to 3 years experience, even for an entry-level job.
Yeah, which is insane.
Which is just crazy. A lot of companies for full-time jobs will use that internship experience as experience when they're saying they want 1 to 3 years experience, right? Internship counts. Welcome back to episode 10 of the Rome's Room podcast, where we discuss education, careers, and how ordinary people can also do extraordinary things. As always, I am your host, Jerome Vaz, and welcome to my room. 2 episodes back-to-back in the same room, thank God. Quick reminder, you can catch us on Apple, Spotify, CastBox, everywhere that you get podcasts, as well as watch the video version on youtube.com/Jerome Vaz. So make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell. We've got Daniel Enciso back in the building. Daniel, welcome back. Welcome back.
Thank you.
You know, last week we didn't get super into your career. Just quickly to give like a little, chronological recap of kind of your path into software engineering.
Yes.
If you want to just tell the listeners kind of how you got there, and then I want to get into the actual, internship, career, that type of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll just start off with like the current state of where I'm at.
Yeah.
So I'm a senior software engineer. I mainly and only work in the back end now.
And for people that don't know, explain a little bit about what back end means.
So I work in payment processing.
Okay.
I don't edit any user interfaces, UIs. I don't do any app development and on the front end. So what that means is, and I think it might depend on where, what company you're at and all that, but I mainly focus in on Python. I code also infrastructure as code, which is deploying cloud infrastructure on AWS, or there's other things Google provides cloud solutions, and then we can get into all of that. But so what we're doing is handling the money movement and enabling the correct processing of transactions.
Okay.
That's the really high level. But my career, while this has been the last, I think, year and a half of working, I previously was a consultant, still as a software engineer, and that did lead to different tech stacks. And what I mean by that is different languages that I coded with, different clients that I worked at, and that was for about 3 years of my career. So after graduating college, which was in December of 2018, I've been working
about 5 years out.
Yeah, exactly. And it's crazy that
time's flying,
the time's flying. One, the level of aptitude and credibility that I've built in this space. Honestly, I don't know if I would have fathomed it when I was younger. Yeah.
So I think that was a really good lead-in.
Cheers to that, by the way.
Yes, sir. Good call. Cheers.
Episode 10.
Wait, before you drink.
Oh, yeah, tell us more.
This is some Japanese sake that we've got here.
Say something in Japanese, bro. That
let's cheers in Japanese.
Okay. Teach.
Kanpai.
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 So we don't have any sake glasses, so we're drinking out of whiskey glasses. But
the Japanese make whiskey though too. So.
It's that's true. Yeah. Suntory is a good Japanese whiskey.
This is actually nice.
This is really good. It's I don't actually know the type of sake or anything, but this is very smooth.
This is incredibly smooth.
I
wish I could tell.
Nice sweetness on it.
Yes.
No.
It's
actually really good. It's delicious.
I'm actually smiling at how lovely this is.
So how I got this sake was my as of filming this episode, future brother-in-law, but by the time this episode comes out, will be my brother-in-law, gave me 3 bottles of sake in a gift pack.
What a G.
And on the top of the box, it had written, "Will you be my groomsman?" So it was like a groomsman gift.
Yeah.
And so, what more perfect way? Because I think eventually this conversation will lead towards travel and, worldly conversations. So,
Absolutely.
I think it's fitting.
And if it doesn't fit
It's
in this
fitting.
episode, we'll just have to
We'll
pour
have to
some
bring you
more
back.
and have
We'll have
another
to bring you
episode.
back, man.
Damn, that's
But so, come by to that. I want to talk about, I think we covered academics pretty well in the last episode.
yeah, especially the decision to go into school and
Yes.
like why, like the thinking. So like the thought process of being an engineer. But then what does that lead to?
Right. So I
does
want
that
to
lead
get
to?
into kind of what does that mean for your career, right? Because just because you were good as an academic, as a student,
Yeah.
doesn't necessarily mean those skills transfer over.
Yeah.
I've told this story before on this podcast where I say that, when I first started working at Eastman, I felt very behind because even though I was always a really good student, practically the work of being an electrical engineer, I just didn't have the practical knowledge. Some people would argue that that's the whole point of an internship. Some people would argue that's not a problem because
I would argue that.
yeah. And some people would say that's not a problem because when you start your first job, that's how a lot of people feel.
I would also argue that.
And you're supposed to learn on the job, which I think is true.
Yes.
I felt a little behind because the people that I was around
You learn
at
by
the time,
swimming.
yes, had done the practical stuff and it felt like they were ahead of me. And so I want to talk to you about kind of that internship experience. First off, why do you think it's so important? Actually, you know what? Let me flip it. First off, how did you get your internship to begin with? What was that quote unquote recruiting process like for a software engineer?
So that's a great question. And so to talk about this, I think it's pretty important to, one, specify everybody's experience is unique. And I think one thing that I failed for in that whole process of getting recruited to go play college soccer was the lack of connections.
Ooh, like a network.
Lack of people who know what I'm about.
Man, that's so important.
Buy in. And not just oh, I like you, Daniel.
Yeah.
I'm going to just give you an opportunity. No, they know how I play.
Yep.
They know where I fit in and where I don't.
Yep.
Fit in the sense of could I be a player on this team? Matches the chemistry? Can I show up? I didn't build that. I wasn't reaching out to people. I wasn't talking.
You're talking about from a professional perspective or both?
No. So I'm saying
from a
for
soccer perspective. Yeah.
Did not make this same mistake, or I did not make that same approach. I did not have that same approach. I was on it, dude. Starting freshman year, the first semester, I was telling people what I wanted to work on, my hopes, what I was learning on.
What types of people?
People in the
professors?
university. So
Okay.
yeah, it starts with professors, and who knows who. And it's not because
it's important.
well, no, it's not. It's not just because I wanted to just get it easy. No, I'm just saying I have this eagerness, and I know some people, meaning I know the professors. That's what I know, and they know what's going on in the university.
Yeah,
and
100%.
the thing is as much as. Well, no, I have no idea what people think. But universities are there filled with people who have had excellent careers, academic or in industry.
Yep.
Or just entrepreneurial, and you don't know what you don't know. And so and nobody's telling me to go my parents weren't saying they're saying figure out your classes and do all that. But I just, due to exposure in the scholars program, due to seeing people do well in the engineering classes, I'm like, dude, and it's go time. It's go time.
Yeah,
I need to find out who sees me.
Yeah.
Who sees me? Who can see something also that I can't see? Because the thing is as much as we talked about ordinary people doing and I think we're all extraordinary in the sense of when you fully be your authentic self.
100%.
But I am an ordinary person, meaning they've seen somebody else walk in.
Exactly.
Have aspirations.
100%.
And be I want to do something.
100%.
So it's they've seen it and they're okay, we can get you to go there. And so I through some different conversations gotten connected, and I went more of the research route. There's a national lab close to the University of Tennessee, Oak Ridge. I'll just name it because it's Oak Ridge,
it's very well known.
And it's well known. Manhattan Project. If people have recently seen Oppenheimer.
Yep.
I don't know if you know anything about.
Yeah. I haven't seen the movie, but yes, I'm
Okay.
aware.
And
Not a good time to be drinking sake.
oh yeah, wow.
Didn't think about
The
that.
irony,
Didn't
the
think about that
irony
one.
of life, which we can get into the paradoxes of life, and that's another
Yeah.
that's another conversation.
As you guys can tell probably by now, Daniel and I really enjoy getting into these like philosophical topics. So much so that maybe we get off topic.
Yeah, we get a little bit off topic. Yeah,
but no, we'll get into it. We'll get into all of it.
Yeah, we get it. And so and this was also the question: how do I? One of the things that like we all have challenges with, it's like this whole prerequisite of like you must have this experience to qualify for the job, bro. Yes, that's true. I've also not been given jobs, and then later on been asked to interview, because then I built up the credibility and hate. Like no hate, like no, it's all good. But I think we have to be conscious of that, especially when like we've just not convinced but suggested, hey, come to university, study here.
Yep.
We then need to also, meaning universities, and they do this. Like what I'm trying to say is like, be connected with places nearby, businesses nearby to, hey, we have people who are eager, who are willing to learn. Find something that can provide a learning experience. Shit, paid, unpaid, whatever, dude. Like, just so that you can have that, so that later
on your resume.
Yeah, and so like, and so that kind of added up. Like I had my first freshman year went by. That's a crazy fast forward, but a full summer interning.
This is the one at Oak Ridge.
Yeah, and that went well. And then eventually that led on to some part-time research internships. Continued there because again, like the thing is like, you have to show up.
Yeah.
You have to show up. And I'm not saying like, oh wow, it all works out and like it's not easy. No, like man, like I'm, like I.
And it's hard. It's hard.
You get humbled.
It's hard to get internships in college. It's difficult. But if you're given the opportunity to get an internship, I highly recommend everyone do one because to exactly what you're saying, the two uphill battles that you're always going to be fighting when you're looking for a job. Number one is everyone's going to want more experience than you have. Even for an entry-level job that is supposed to be directly out of undergrad, people are going to want, the job posting is going to say we want 1 to 3 years experience, even for an entry-level job.
Yeah, which is insane.
Which is just crazy, right? The second uphill battle that everyone is always going to be fighting is this idea of it's not what you know, it's who you know, kind of that networking concept that you were talking about.
Yeah.
And that internship creates opportunity for both to, because a lot of companies for full-time jobs will use that internship experience as experience. When they're saying they want 1 to 3 years experience, right? Internship counts. When you're talking about creating a network of people in the industry that you want to be in that knows somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody who has a job opening that potentially you could be a good fit for, an internship will help with that. So it is really important.
Yeah.
So you worked at Oak Ridge, and what was that experience like working at a research laboratory? I mean, you were still doing software engineering.
Yeah.
But were you passionate about what you were doing? Did you feel like it could be a good fit for a full-time job?
Yeah, the thing is about national labs, it's like, they're funded by our government. They're trying to improve the lives of, like, all countries have, like, these investments that they make into, whether it's, like, their infrastructure, their energy systems, they have collaborations. And so because I'm not, in a way, pretentious in knowing what I need to learn, I was just very eager to just be like, okay, what does software development look like? Because that's what my internship was around, without getting into like what I was developing and those details will not be shared. But the process, because that, again, it's like, okay, classes are talking to me about like, we had shared engineering fundamental classes. Then some of the CS classes were talking about like, this is how you code a program, this is how you save it, this is how you run it, this is how you debug it. That's all great. It's not theory because you're actually developing it, But then the question then becomes, okay, how is that applied? And how is that iterated upon? Meaning, like, in a practical sense, when they need you to code something, what are they asking you to code? Is it a website? How is that data being moved around? If you need images to show up, how do you move? Like, it's all these questions of that build upon that understanding of like data structures and algorithms, which is teaching you like, this is how programming languages work, and this is how they're used. They've been developed because the hardware, like the computer chips that we develop, can understand things in this level, bits, right? Then there's operating systems that understand it on this level and communicate with the machine. And then the operating system creates an environment where you can then build upon levels to all of that. But then it's just like, okay, how does a research lab use that? And then other experiences later on, like how does an industry company that like needs to do this, do that, how does all of that lead to? And so learning how to be a software engineer, the software development life cycle, is something extremely critical for you to then step into any space, research, industry, entrepreneurial. Like people who don't, like, you know, there's people like make millions with code, you know.
Well,
and
so
it's just
do you
like,
think that internship was critical to kind of putting pen to paper on what you were learning in the classroom?
yeah, absolutely. You know? Yeah, exactly. Yes. Simply put, yes. I could give it more color, but yes.
No, because I do think that's important because, like I was mentioning about Eastman, like in practice, like doing what you're being taught is what's going to teach you how to be successful in the job. And so you mentioned you were working for Oak Ridge again part-time sophomore year.
Throughout college.
College.
Yeah.
Were there other internships as well?
I did do a co-op for about 7 months. This was after I'd finished my first 3 years of school. I was hesitant because I didn't want to prolong my graduation. But I also didn't have a rush. Again, I think I was very blessed with the fact that I did have a full ride. And so I didn't need to go start paying off debts. That could affect some people. But even if I didn't, even if I did have to pay them off, I didn't have enough information because I just had research internships. So I worked more at like just a normal software company where I could just like learn what that looks like. Yeah. Because again, like I'm about having experiences. Yeah. Like I truly believe that. I always respect people when they say, I want to know what this is like. Because like I've done that with my life. I'll never hate against. Like you can't like, if somebody's embodying that same spirit, I would call the explorer or adventurer. I'm all about that. And so like I took that and 7 months is a long time, man, especially because it does, you stay in that space long enough and it's like, damn, I got to go back to classes.
Yeah, I know.
You know what I'm saying? And I got to finish this.
You got to flip the brain.
Yeah. But, you know, I wish I could say like I wrote it all out in the sense of like I planned out how it was going to go, how it was going to develop. But because of those 7 months, then I had 2 semesters left. And then that summer, I also did another kind of like research internship to qualify for a fellowship to go to grad school. Right. And I almost was had the option of doing a PhD. Yeah. I got an offer for a fellowship, and which is also just, it was an incredibly like tough decision because it would have led to different choices. And I can talk about like what that choice is like, but through a combination of like being a software developer in a research context, then being a software developer industry. Yep. Then thinking about like a pure academic route where I am using my skills as a software developer to gain new insights and push the needle forward on some kind of area of computers. All of that then fed into the ultimate decision. Okay, like, well, great, you've been afforded all these opportunities. What are you going to do about it?
Right. Well, so one quick thing is, you know, I think it is interesting that you had that opportunity to pursue the PhD, but I guess ultimately, looking at your career, why'd you decide not to go that route and to go
That was
directly into industry?
Yeah, it was tough, man. We're all thinkers. I like to think of enjoy the pursuit of knowledge, but not just like that doesn't even capture what I mean. I'm saying like I really like to the study of things.
Yeah.
I approach many aspects of my life like that, and the PhD, especially like in the space that I'm in, it could have led to so many things.
Yeah.
I eventually I try to go where I'm wanted always. Now this is
Okay.
whether it was in soccer, relationships, the scholars program, the internships, all of those places, man. I was wanted. I was called upon. We are interested in you. We want you. We will give you the time, the space. Show us that you acknowledge that. And of course, like I'm not perfect, like I don't like, from the technical aspect, like,
Yeah.
man, explain this to me again. I don't get it.
Right.
I'm slightly delayed, but like I'm gonna show up. I'm gonna figure it out. I'm gonna put some more hours in. So eventually, like the whole decision in the fall of 2018, I had met someone during my college career, halfway through, that worked in consulting, and an alum of the university.
Okay.
Big proponent of giving Tennessee volunteers the ability and the opportunity to make a choice and see things unseen. Big shout out to this individual, and honestly embodies like how I am already pursuing. Like I talk to college students that I'm connected with.
Yeah.
I reach out back to university. Like been given a lot, and I've seen people who give back, and those are models to follow. It's something that's easy to imitate.
Yeah.
And so, simply put, this individual, again, doesn't hand it to you. Says, interview. I can only get you so far.
Right.
Because there's other people who don't know you, right? Who don't know what you're about, and it's not because they don't care. It's just like, man, they got their own lives. They have other things. They have work, and they also, but interview, show up, try to show what others have seen.
Yeah.
And then okay, so all the opportunities, like I'm accepted, and there's a job proposal and all of that, and eventually we talked in the last episode about like right or wrong decisions. Did I make the right or wrong choice?
Yeah.
Fast forward, at one point in my career, because of I'm talking to somebody about like, should I stay in consulting? Should I not? Very wise man, a wise person, and he tells me there are no really like right or wrong decisions in life. You just make the choice. You just own it. Because yes, the duality, like the right or wrong, comes in depending on what you think was the wrong or right choice. But in the end of the day, it was just a decision that you buy into, you lock in on, and then you roll with it. And so now I didn't know that at the time. I was just like,
of course,
shit.
of course.
Like, there's the money, there's this, there's that. And again, always on my mind, like, Daniel, one, I didn't even say this. Like, I actually had like a internship even before school started, like before undergrad started.
Yeah.
But it wasn't anything major, and it was just like this kind of like small little job where I wasn't even like coding, but I was like learning about it. And one conversation that I had was with this older gentleman, where he told me, and we were talking about just like life and career and all that, and he told me to travel. And that we're not going to go into all the travel, but then I've always had other questions about what I need to get done in life. Two things were important.
Outside of work.
Well, two things were important. Like, a lot of people believe in me. I'm talking about my family, but like people who have afforded me internships, this education. It's not even about repaying them, but I will do the I will complete the duty that,
Yeah, you wanna
that's
make
been given
all these
upon
people
me.
proud.
Yeah. And not even just proud, but like it continued the flow of energy, of knowledge, of everything that's been given to me. Like, and it has been done, but I'm not dead yet. So like,
Yeah, you got to continue.
There's still time. But there was this other aspect of like, which we all are aware of. It's like, damn, I only have one life. I don't know what's happening next. I don't even know what's going to happen tomorrow or like 5 minutes from now.
Yeah.
We've had friends who've passed away. I've had family members or extended or strangers that I've heard of, like, dude, they get cancer, they aneurysm, all this kind of different stuff happens. And it's just like, how immediate you need to be with, like, am I doing what I want?
Yes.
So then I just started asking myself questions, like, what do I want to do? I am totally all about getting the work done that my life is about. Like, you know, like I may need to be an older brother. I need to be all this stuff. But then I was like, what do I want to do? Like, so then that I just kind of, again, had to decide, and I felt like consulting, it was going to put me in New York City. Mm-hmm. And I was like, and the first time I had been to New York City was for my 21st birthday, like a year or two prior. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do that. And that was a choice.
So
right. And so that was a choice.
Was the, enticement of the city a large portion of that decision?
Partly, yeah.
Okay.
Partly.
But
I didn't know enough about like New York in that sense.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like, I know the things that people know about.
Right. No, but I do think it's important what you're saying because, I ultimately had that conversation with myself. I, right out of undergrad, was supposed to go to UT Austin for master's in electrical engineering. Mm-hmm. I got into the school. I had decided I was going, and then similarly had a conversation with myself where I was like, what is it that I ultimately...
I didn't know you got in there. I didn't know that was an option.
Yeah. And not even did I get in. I had decided I was going. I had paid my deposit to go to the university. And then kind of last second, I had that same kind of heart-to-heart conversation with myself of like, what is it that I actually want to do in my life? And at that point in my life, I hadn't, had this like any sort of like difficult... anything that made me think like, no like death or anything like that I was dealing with that I was like, oh, I have to live life to the fullest. I wasn't necessarily thinking from that perspective, but I was thinking like, is this ultimately what I want to do? And and the answer was no. It was a very difficult decision to get to. Yeah. But once I got to it, it was like, okay. Yeah. As Hassan Minhaj said on his stand-up special, tools, clear history. Can't think about that anymore. You made a decision, and you need to
absolutely,
with everything that you have, pursue that decision and make sure you're doing it to the best of your ability, right? And I think it's important what you said earlier about trying different things in your internships and whatnot, because for me, I did a bunch of different types of internships. I did manufacturing and electrical engineering. I did essentially like software engineering for a company. And also my time at Eastman was more like design-based. And ultimately, between all of those experiences, I decided like, okay, I feel like I've tried a lot of different things in engineering, and like none of this feels like what I need to be doing. Yeah. And that was a big part why I decided to go back to the MBA, and kind of fully switch it up.
Yeah, man.
But it's tough, right? Because especially in a field like engineering, when you have a really great starting salary out of undergrad and you're making a lot of money and all that stuff, it's difficult to, quote unquote, throw that away. There's a fear there to throw that away and pursue something different. In your case, like PhD versus industry, like there is some amount of fear of like maybe not in terms of like, the PhD could give me a higher salary or anything like that, but there's this, and fear may not be the right word either, but there's this always like this wonderment of like, what could have happened if I went that right? Yeah. But you can't think like that. You make your choice and then you move on.
Yeah, and like to say like, PhDs are like fully funded and there's some spare money, and like I am acquainted with people who did go through the program and they've worked at, the big at big tech companies, and
for sure.
And they've are going to do well for themselves. And so the thing isn't that, like, it's not that, especially this space, man, is so, there's so much abundance.
Yeah,
because there's so many problems that, again, this space affords. It's, you're solving scalable things, like you just are. And not to get into the 1+1 argument again, but like the reason why, like, it's a numbers game. Like, it's a numbers, like the amount of people that you're providing the solution for, there is a logical compensation for that given. And so,
I mean, it's true.
Yeah,
I think,
and because of that, like, whatever space, but it became into, like, how specifically, what do you want to work in? What do you want your day-to-day look like? What else is going to happen?
That's why software engineering...
Who wants you there? You know what I'm saying? Like, and I was wanted in both, but then that's what makes it then difficult. It's like, okay, yeah, we want you here, they want you here. And then you have to ask yourself, where do you want to be?
Right.
Where do you want to be? And then then it's just it.
And
you can't be in more than one place, bro.
Right. And I mean, obviously, like, the technology and stuff is leading the world to a place where, like, software engineering jobs are very abundant right now, and they're getting compensated, well.
Yeah.
Very well. And so, all that aside for a second, you went to this software consulting role in New York City.
Yes.
I want to know a little bit more about that experience, because it seems very different from what you did in your internships and co-ops, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I would assume a lot more client-facing. There are a lot of these, like, soft skills that you inherently need to either learn or, like, have before you start.
Well, this is where, like, go ahead. Ask me that last one.
No, yeah. So I'm just curious, like, how was that experience? You're like a very personable guy. You're easy to talk to and stuff. So, like, I'm sure the client interaction side, like, wasn't a problem.
Yeah.
But I would love to know, like, how the software consulting space was different, and just how overall you felt from it before you decided to leave that space.
I see. So the word that I would use now is, like, stakeholder management is something that I had already been working with since I try to impress upon people what I mean when I say things and when I do things. Again, it's an art. It's an art. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say you're like a very, particular is not the right word. The word's escaping me. Deliberate. Or
I tried to be. I tried to be. I also, to be that concise, like in my own theorizing or with my private conversations, and I'm trying not to do it right now, is just like I'm all over the place sometimes. Yeah. Because I'm trying to, again, not necessarily be wrong, but to get rid of what doesn't serve. Could be misinterpretation of something. Yeah, because, like, again, dude, it's not like this is an act, but this is learned behavior. I told you, like, I learned how to talk English like this. Yeah. To think like this, to think like an engineer, to be a guy in this point in the century where both of my parents are from this country, and I've also, and, like, I could tell you about, like, how I learned how to, like, improve my Spanish, because it was almost going to get lost, because there's a lot of, like, Hispanics or like a lot of Hispanics who don't know Spanish for other reasons, because, like, maybe it's not, like, in their best interest to speak Spanish where they're living in the country. Yeah. I don't know. That wasn't my experience, and we always spoke it at home. But what I'm trying to say is, like, with that in mind, and then you asking in particular, like, how do I step into this consulting role? How do I manage that as, like,
brand new?
Yeah, exactly. How do I, because, like, you're right, dude. First of all, New York, a lot, heavy. When I moved there, dude, I didn't know how to handle it. My family, super helpful and, like, helping me move, but I was just so overwhelmed, man.
And that's coming from you that lived in big cities, Tampa, Nashville.
But, like, again, like, no, but suburban, scale. Bro. No, I lived suburban lifestyle, residential. That's fair. Residential. At that point, like, I wasn't.
And where in New York were you living?
I was in Manhattan. So, like,
Manhattan, okay.
Yeah, like
what
West
neighborhood?
Midtown,
okay.
Hell's Kitchen.
Hell's Kitchen.
Yeah, Hell's Kitchen. So
you're just right in the middle of the fire.
Yeah, exactly. Literally. Exactly. Yeah. No, 100%.
Yeah.
Bro, and your boy was not ready. Like, I remember I was just so tense and so preoccupied with, and I just couldn't, like, while they were there, this was the culmination of my my ego just getting
And there's a lot of egos there, you know, in the sense of like,
Oh,
you know,
yeah,
you're walking
like,
down
oh,
the
I can
street and you could
there's a lot of
pass
egos.
a lawyer, investment banker,
But it's not them.
software engineer.
It's
like,
not who we are.
it's the city, bro.
But the city is beautiful in the sense of like how you come to it. But again, you remember, like I said, like I had early experiences on my career that helped me feel fulfilled
Yeah.
and validated as a software engineer. I took that first client experience. But what I'm trying to say is like I didn't know that. And so like I'm trying to get there, and now I got to worry about like, dude, like now I laugh at how sensitive this kid was at trying to make it, that like he was so perturbed by his parents wanting to do things in a certain day, like, you know, like I'm literally, I was so like trying to get locked in, and I still fight with it sometimes because like people, they don't try to throw me off. I'm saying like I feel that tension of like, man, I don't have this figured out.
Yeah.
How do I react to this? That is the art that I've learned, because I could apply it for work, you know, like for work, like not being overwhelmed by the project.
Yeah.
Knowing how to take a step back, but that like.
Wait, I'm curious about this.
Yeah, go ahead.
You mentioned this kid. Speaking of yourself, is so sensitive.
Yeah.
I want to know more about that.
Yeah.
In what sense are you saying? Like you were having client interactions where you were feeling like.
Oh, this was not. This was like in the home space, right?
Okay,
like,
okay.
and but in the sense of also, how does that transition into every aspect
The
of the life?
workplace is what I
into
wanna
the
know.
workplace. And so, like, precisely, I think that's what it is. Where, one, yes, you need to be on your A game, but you don't need to like prove anything. In the sense of you don't need to. You got your team backing you up. People want the projects to excel. And so what I'm trying to say is like you go into New York trying to, or any place, but like, you know, after school, like wherever you end up, you're like, I need to show like why they hired me.
Yeah.
Okay.
I need to be on 100% of the time. I need to be perfect.
And in New York, like it's
honestly, in New York, it's probably like
yeah, and it's a lot, bro. Like I mean, and like I had all the tendencies like that, like if you didn't know how to like healthily like balance your life, sleep, diet, maybe you're drinking too much, like a lot of things. If you don't have that locked in,
Yeah.
which I don't think I did as much as like I have now.
Right.
The city can be overwhelming. And then maybe you excel in the workplace, but maybe that's your understanding, but maybe, yeah, you get the work done, but how you're working also matters. Like how well do you like your colleagues feel? And I'm not saying like I had no major problems. That's not like it's not like to say but I can tell like when I'm really working well with others, and that's when you're bringing your best person forward. And this is what I mean, like when you're making that transition from, even with all those internships, man, like it's crazy, but it wasn't enough to be like as seamless, I think, is like how I transition into things now.
Yeah.
Right. But it's because like, dude, it's that imposter syndrome is like that. It's that cliche word where it's just like, man, you're always gonna like dig at yourself and be like, you're always gonna dig at yourself and be like, yeah, you still don't know enough because you haven't developed this.
Yeah.
You know, like this person went to that school, or they talk like this, or they're this, and they might be valid reasons. You know, that other people, or you're putting yourself at a disadvantage, but in reality, so stepping into that consulting space, it was about like, I'd already learned a lot of things from the scholars program to be, how do I communicate, challenging ideas, tense environments, different deadlines. All of that stuff helped.
Yeah.
Because the engineering helped me like the technical.
For sure.
The internships helped the technical. But the consulting was a different place. But of course, you know, I'm not like the manager or the vice president managing the client relations. Like I'm an individual contributor.
Right.
You know,
Actually
when someone gets a business, they're like, we have someone, a guy, girl, whatever, capable of implementing whatever solution it is that they need. That's who you have to be.
Now.
So like I don't have to be like worrying about like, am I gonna demo this?
Right.
And I have to say all this stuff. That comes later. That comes
Were
later.
you ultimately happy doing that job?
The style of work, yes.
But it felt like, did you feel like something was missing? What I'm getting at
So yeah, well, yeah, I know.
is why did you feel like you wanted to leave that space to go and work in-house as a software engineer?
Yeah, I think there was a lot of potential to grow within that company. Like, one of the things was I do want to be a technological leader, not just leading teams, leading products, leading big ideas and the delivery of them. Like,
Yeah.
being a part of that. Like, again, I wanted a seat at the table, and the table is massive, bro. It's not just in America, in the U.S., but it goes all the way to Brazil. It goes to the U.K. It goes all the way to China, Middle East. It's people. It's an incredible space to be in, and I just wanted to be in there.
Yeah.
So when I think about that again, it's the different experiences. I ended up talking to different people who, consulting is a space where, because of depending on like the turnover rate on a project, like you're not gonna necessarily, unless you pick like a capability, like a certain level of aptitude in like cloud solutions, or like you really know how to like develop iOS apps, like and then depending on the client, you develop this kind of app and that kind of app. For me, I talked to some people and they said that yes, but working at a tech company can kind of give you that through long exposure at a company, maybe a few years, that gives you a little bit more of like that opportunity, that chance to see something from the ground up and be able to speak about that. Because at the end of the day, maybe you end up being like an engineering manager and you just lead people. But like if you want to be like an architect, like a solutions architect, well, you might be best through like prolonged exposure to a tech stack, to a certain product, to certain customer needs. And so eventually a part of that reasoning, and one of the major reasons, was just to see what that's like.
Yeah.
To see what that's like.
No, I think I have a very similar experience because when I left investment banking, kind of, it was a similar mindset. Investment banking is a great place to start off your career in like a client services space, and you get a ton of different exposure to tons of different types of clients. But ultimately, if you want to see the growth from the ground up, you have to go internal.
Yeah.
You have to.
Yeah.
Because in a client services space, you're there to do a project, you're there to do a job.
Yeah.
Once that job is over, like we said earlier, tools, clear history, and then you move on to the next.
Absolutely, yeah, and especially if you're not going to stay within the same domain.
Yeah.
Because like the way of like these, you get business is, sometimes you build a generalist, not a specialist from a technological perspective.
Yes.
And so if you have a generalist, you can learn anything and you can develop it, because like again, like we've learned to think like a computer engineer, like a computer scientist, but you've learned to think like a software engineer.
Yeah.
So the tech stack is just a different language,
and
it's a different implementation. So you can show up.
And companies need both. Companies need generalists that are able to, do/understand a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
Those are the people that are going to piece the pieces together.
Yeah.
And then they need specialists that can go really deep into one specific area and be able to do that. You have to.
We
have
only
both.
know this in hindsight, though. I think that's like one of the things. Like when people, like, for sure, like you have to understand. It's just like we don't have the answers in the sense of they tell us this day one. When you come into the world, you've got to go out there, and I think that's the main thing. Where, and nobody. I think this is the other thing too about like careers. Like nobody's gonna fault you for like thinking about yourself and how you want to develop yourself.
Yeah.
Maybe you need more money. You're building a family. You want more things. You need to move to a new place. The list goes on. At the end of the day, what people want is the best version of people. Like and that honestly means in all senses, but purely from the workplace, and developing yourself as a professional. The only way that's gonna happen, man, is like that. Like when you like look at opportunities, and you say, okay, I'm gonna go all in, and I'm gonna go switch. I'm gonna get this MBA. I'm gonna go into investment. Like like people like know your story because they're watching you all the time.
Right.
But for even like other like co-hosts that you've had, you have to know that your like experience is unique, and like you just gotta ask yourself like, is this what I'm about?
Right.
Is this what I'm about? And then that's what kind of like leads to. It's not so much that like, oh, I'm too good for this, or like this job's not keeping me satisfied. I like it to be like, people like will be like, I'm a lifelong learner, like they'll say that, but truly it is like you're learning.
Yeah.
So like, run it.
Right.
Know? Yeah.
And I think ultimately just like, whatever you decide to do, own it and do it
man.
to the best of your ability.
Yes.
Yeah. You can never live in those like what ifs.
Correct.
You gotta own it.
Yeah, the what ifs, like you ask yourself the what if to go see how far, like what if I do this?
It's good to be introspective.
And you say, what if I do this? And then do it.
Yeah, exactly.
And then do it.
Well, I think kind of the last question on this topic that I have for you is, career aside for a second, more so just as a young adult, learning how to be on your own, learning how to be a person in this world, because it's really difficult.
Very difficult.
Just like how transitioning from high school to college is difficult, transitioning out of college into adulthood is also very difficult.
Yes.
I want to know, from your perspective, having lived in all these different places and everything, what has your experience been as a young adult living on your own, New York City versus Austin, Texas? I want to know, kind of the similarities, the differences between those cities, not even between the cities, between how you feel as a young adult and as an adult. And maybe part of it is like, you've been older in Austin, so maybe that brings a different perspective to just life in general. But
yeah, totally. To kind of fill in the gap though, so I grew up in Tampa Bay, and then moved to Franklin, so still not a major city. And I say Tampa Bay, but it's like west of Tampa, so not downtown, anything like that. And go to Knoxville, 4 years. My internships were there in that East Tennessee area. New York, big step. That opens up the world.
Huge difference.
8 months there, then the pandemic occurs.
Yep.
I had family, my parent, like in Nashville, briefly go there, and I just decided to stay. I left 2 weeks before the pandemic got kind of wild in mainly New York, but like in the world. That's a whole navigation thing. I'm not going to get into that. But then 3 years go by. I live in Nashville, right? So like I think that's also important to talk about, because like during that time, I have siblings who graduated undergrad, high school during that time. Fortunately, I had already worked through that period, but other people joined companies during that time. That's a different experience as well. And then I moved to Austin, not because work told me to, but I've
just on a whim.
I've been to Austin a few different times. I have a deep connection to that city. It clicks with me on so many levels, and there was the option, and I was like, well, again, ever seeking the unknown.
Yeah.
What do I not know? I'm not out here to
prove. Goes back to those college days.
I'm not out here to prove anything about myself in the sense of like, I know how to live life. I don't. Like, of course I do. Like, and this is what we're getting at. Like, how do you become an adult?
Right.
Of course there's the answers. But what I'm saying is like, both. And so then that transition to Austin leads to that, is based on that, okay, but like, there's more to find out. There's more to live. So at the end of the day, even though like sometimes I'm like, man, like why do I change so much? Or like, why do people change on me? Like at the end, I love it. Change is good. Change is important. And to allow that to happen is awesome. And so that experience, right? You're in a city, I'm commuting on the train. Like I'm like in the subway, there's always the busyness. Socials after work, transition, you're at home, computer all the time. What socials, bro? What socials?
Nothing.
Nothing. Nothing.
Well, some companies try to do those like Zoom happy hours.
Yeah, and so like,
stuff.
and that happens,
Trash.
and there's
Trash. They're not good.
and there's all kinds of efforts. Nobody dude, nobody knows what's gonna happen.
It was
with
brand
the world.
new. Yeah.
Bro, your boy thought he was gonna go back. You know, I thought I was
To
gonna
New
go
York.
back.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I always left the window. The reason why I ended up staying at home for so long, one, I would have liked to go back, or to see where I was gonna go.
Yeah.
And then second of all, like then there was the advantage of like the remote life.
Yeah.
Which we can talk about that because I definitely took advantage of that because again, I'm like, what do I not know? And I'm a full send it and like rocket ship, all this stuff. And so then three years, dude, go by. During those 3 years in Nashville, I did transition to the new job.
Yep.
Right. So I was working remotely at first, but I was at the point where like I'm like considering, dude, I gotta. My career, my like life is this.
Yes.
Life is this. Like we even had the podcast, right? Like remotely, and I think it was great because like we were just like even just trying to hang out with the friends.
Right.
But life, I can't escape this physical experience yet, nor do I want to.
Right.
And so like practically speaking, I was just like, okay, I need to get back out there, be somewhere where there is an office where I can get to know people, and now knowing what had been like lost, nothing was lost, but you have to make different choices.
Yep.
I think now, I imagine if the luxury of the remote life. Social media touts it like you can work from wherever and all this stuff, but then you have to realize like what you're building. Like, are you trying to build a community, a career, a life? So I would characterize this as a very unique opportunity to learn the value of both being at the office and being working remotely or a virtual worker. And I think that's...
there's pros and cons to both.
Yeah, exactly.
For sure.
That doesn't necessarily, I guess, answer, I think, the difference in terms of, like, New York and Austin are very different cities,
Right.
For sure. The whole commuting aspect is different, and now the fact that, like, hybrid is an option or even full remote's an option. Before, like, when we started working, bro, like that.
Yeah.
What? Like, dude, I went
you're in
all
the
the
office
time
5 days
to
a
the
week.
client's office, or I went to our office, and that was valuable. But now there's that flexibility for us is great, and I understand other professions don't have that.
A lot of people are leaving their jobs for that flexibility.
Yeah.
You know,
but I think again, it's case by case, man. If that's what you need to do with your life,
yeah,
figure it out.
right.
Figure it out.
I agree. We skipped this in the last episode, but it's time for a segment that I like to call "Getting Silly in the Room." All right, this is where we
I didn't know that was the name.
we take things,
good
we make it a little lighthearted, and I've got some topics that I want to talk about that will hopefully suck us out of all this career talk.
I'm not ready.
And it's funny that you mentioned that we had a podcast earlier, because in my notes, I've got it right here. The first question that I have for this segment is, we started a podcast back in the day.
Yeah.
During the pandemic.
Yes.
It was called The Nonsense Brewery.
Yes.
And my question to you is, why do you think that podcast did not take off? Why do you think it failed?
Well, simply put, like, I think the amount of engagement, within ourselves was kind of like, we just had fun meeting up with each other, and then we decided to record.
For sure.
But simply put, it was born out of the idea of that there's nothing else to do. Let's
Honestly,
hang out.
Yeah.
And
it was a good way to almost have a set time and day every single week that we could all hang out and talk.
Yes, and even that itself is a testament to whether people talk about like mental health, in our case maybe brotherhood, but whatever it is, when you find your tribe, your family, your friends, your group, that time was just very... You can feel so alone, and like we were with families or significant others or whatever it is, but like even then, like we were also common experience. Some of us lived on the same floor in college, and again, like that time we felt so sad. Dude, like we couldn't even, we thought we were going to catch shit from people.
Right.
We wore masks. We didn't go out. People like doused their groceries and like whatever it is. And what I'm trying to say is like that podcast in a way
was
like,
liberating.
Liberating, man. It was just liberating, one, to just like smile a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, just get
talk about nonsense.
Yeah, exactly. And dude,
for 1 hour a week,
but
you can just forget about everything.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, like there's the whole ordeal of like, man, like you gotta upload, you gotta edit, all this stuff. And like from the actual like, can you make this like a working podcast? We probably just didn't take it seriously enough, and then that's what happens. But again, within the context that it was born, like we got busy, man. We just got busy.
Right.
And so the nature of it, it had its time and its place, you know?
No,
maybe it can come back. Maybe if I
Well, the funny thing is, no, like I personally was treating it like a podcast. I think I would get very frustrated when other people was.
I mean, I was in it. But yeah.
But you know, like I was getting very frustrated when other people, because it was mainly, you know, a group of 5 of us that we would do it every single week.
Yeah.
Typically, we would get 4 out of 5 of us on every episode. And I was getting very frustrated when other people weren't taking it like seriously to the level of a podcast. I eventually
attachment
at one point,
to outcome, bro. Attachment. To
well,
outcome.
I eventually ended up, you know, dumping all of the editing duties on you. Because I was just like, I don't want to be wasting my time. That's exactly how I felt. I don't want to be wasting my time.
Let it out.
Editing this when it's not going anywhere, right? It is truly how I felt. Looking back on it, I am like, you know what? Back then I was like, why are we recording any of this? We should just be like, let's have a Zoom call once a week at this time and let's just catch up. Looking back on it, if we hadn't said that it was a podcast and we were recording and made it like, quote unquote, like work, like a meeting, I don't know that we would have done it. If it had just been a weekly scheduled call just to get on Zoom to just catch up with friends, I don't know that we would have showed up.
Nah, man, I miss calls all the time. Like I tell my friends like that live across the world, and I'm like, hey, let's talk. It's like,
it gets easy. And I think
deprioritize.
Yes, I think the trap that we fall into.
Life is about prioritization.
Yes,
that's all it is.
And I think the trap that a lot of people fall into is when you're so close, so connected to people, it becomes easy to be like, I don't need to talk to this person this week because they're always available. I can talk to them whenever I want.
But
then you just never call them.
Yeah,
or you
and
never talk.
Eventually they're gone.
Yes. So I think setting that time where we were like, oh, we have to do this because we have to upload, we have to do this, forced us to get in a call in a Zoom room and talk to each other and just catch up. And just talk.
Absolutely.
And honestly, looking back on it, like, I wouldn't give it up for anything. You know?
Absolutely not.
Because all those same guys, right? Still some of my closest friends, still some of our closest friends. How often do I talk to them now on the phone? Of course, like we have a group chat, we text all the time.
Yeah, but not.
How often do I call them and talk to them?
Honestly, I would get goosebumps or nostalgia if we ever sat down again and had, like the 5 screens show up, man. I think I'd get the fucking chills, dude.
Yeah.
I'd get like, because I went through stuff at that. Like my mom would mention like when I was leaving to go to Austin, and think about like my parents, like they grew up in Colombia and like they didn't leave home. Like people don't like, now it's a little bit different, but a lot of people just stay at home until they end up getting married or they live in a different city and their jobs in a different place. But I had left, like a solid 6 years, done a bunch of stuff and then at home it took a readjusting because like I had become a different person and all that. And then 3 years go by, deep bonds, we worked through so many things, and then she'd mention like she'd remember the podcast, like that I'd get ready to just like to record and all that, and it's so beautiful. All those memories are beautiful, and it's like I deeply appreciate it. And like I remember Alex, one of our the hosts with us, he his mom would like look at it, like everybody would look at it. So like I think it was not wasted, man, because I think what like
another an interesting thing that you just mentioned, like at the very least, even if like a bunch of strangers weren't watching, at the very, very least, right, our families were watching. And at that time in the world, it was like maybe for a lot of us, we weren't able to, of course you were living at home, but maybe for a lot of us, we weren't able to go see our families. So it was almost like a little piece of us that they could see through the internet.
Yeah, man.
For a little
we never
bit,
know what people appreciate. I think one of the things that like, dude, I'm getting deep in it again. That's lost upon me, and please just stop me. That's lost upon me. It's like we never know the impressions we leave on people.
Yeah.
Man. And then when they hit you with like that shit was funny, or like wow that was cool, and like damn I didn't know that about you.
Right.
Wow.
Right.
Wow.
I agree. And
that it was fun.
like
bro.
it's permanently in history.
Yeah, man. As long as like Google doesn't like go bankrupt or something.
Right,
like
right,
the servers will
the
keep
servers
running.
don't crash, and
the servers will keep running, and YouTube will show
host us there forever,
show our beautiful faces.
Well, I have to switch gears a little bit. I have another thought-provoking question for you.
Oh shit!
Have you seen recently where UPS? There was an article that came out that UPS is going to start paying their drivers $170,000 a year. Have you seen this article?
I did not. Damn. So.
First off, give me your immediate impressions of that.
Road trips, baby. Road trip. Like drivers not flying. Like they're pilots. They have pilots too.
Drivers.
So their pilots are probably making
freight drivers.
Money. Well, dude, life's expensive. That is, dude. One of the things, again, like when you understand the way the world works, the way like freight moves and cargo moves, dude, we need stuff, man. All the supply things, like when lumber was super expensive or you can't get shit at the stores.
Yeah.
There's a reason why. One, things aren't being produced. Two, it can't get to you.
Right.
Like it can't get to warehouses and it can't get distributed to points of sale. I do not know the economics behind that decision, meaning like I don't know if that's like the market rate. I assume because companies obviously they need to be profitable. They're not just going to give away money.
Right.
So that's something that like fits within their budget, and it's basically they have no other choice because otherwise they don't get companies say resources.
Yeah.
They don't get the resources.
Yeah.
This is
listen, man.
This makes sense, bro.
Go get that bag. For everyone.
Somebody just driving around.
Get that bag.
I know that belittles the job. Dude, no. Like, dude, you have to pay traffic. Dude, I don't even know if like people get like assaulted. Like shipping stuff. What neighborhood you're in. Like, I mean, like honestly, bro. Like I would say to people, like this is a thing, man. Like people are out here. You need university. You don't need university. You need to be a computer engineer. You need to go to med school, bro.
It's
like,
not a job that you can just do just like that, right? Like if you're driving one of the.
Can you drive? Can you whip it, man?
Because here's my.
Have you ever tried to drive a truck?
Well,
like that
so here's
big?
my thing. It's not your. At least this is my understanding. I don't think it is the UPS.
Moped, bro.
It's not the UPS driver that's driving the little box truck that's delivering from the warehouse to your house.
Not. Oh, no.
I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
I think it's the ones that are driving the freight.
Semis?
Across the world. In that case, right, you have to put investment into yourself. You have to get your CDL license, and you know what I mean.
Bro, and your back hurts from sitting that long. Dude.
Now,
like who? Like,
here is
yoga has helped heal my back. By the way.
Here is the.
Thank you who convinced me to go do yoga.
Here's where the article is a little misleading. I believe, because it makes for a better headline, this is what they wrote. I believe in that 170,000 is included benefits. Health benefits, 401k benefits, life insurance.
Bro, how much is the base salary? What's all this nonsense? What's the base salary?
Unclear.
Okay,
there wasn't a breakdown. If I had to guess, I think the base salary is somewhere in the 90 to 100 range, maybe a little higher, maybe 110, 120, call it. And then the remaining is benefits.
Okay.
Now, in my opinion, that's not crazy because Walmart drivers that drive the big freight semis make similar. They're known as like the ones that make the most on the road, and they make 6 figures plus. Now, does that mean UPS is just matching, the Walmart rate? In my opinion, probably.
Yeah. That could be.
But thinking about the future, here's how I see this going. Actually, about like the Tesla semi trucks that are coming out and stuff.
Yeah.
Fully autonomous, fully self-driving. I think what's going to happen is, yeah, you're going to still have a couple of these UPS drivers or a couple hundred of these UPS drivers that are driving across country, driving these freights that are making this type of money, right? But I think ultimately what you're going to have instead is something like a Tesla Semi that's driving itself, and then you're going to have a UPS passenger person who I think will get paid less because they're not actually quote unquote driving the car or the truck.
Yeah.
You know, I think they'll be paid less, and because, you know, ultimately, like, companies that are this size and stuff, like, they only care about their bottom line. And I'm not saying all these companies are bad or in any sort of way, but
I think I think the bottom line matters.
I think the bottom line matters. I
100%.
think, in my personal opinion, I think efficiency, quote unquote efficiency, is always or most of the time going to beat out, like, morals or, like, you know, bettering, like, the lives of their employees or anything like that.
Yeah.
So if they can find a way to pay a quote unquote passenger co-pilot, call it, a lesser wage, and then have an autonomous vehicle, I think that's the route that we're going to go.
Yeah, I mean, perhaps. Yeah. I mean, I don't like. I think the it's a different job at that point.
Yes.
So like, hence, it's different pay. I think it's that simple.
And I think that's the argument that a company like UPS would be able to make in order to pay those people less.
Well, again, like, language defines reality, right? And I know I'm like bringing it back to that, but like, I think if it was the same job, then for sure.
Yeah.
But it's not. It's no longer the same job, and I think.
Well, so my point being, like, you know, we can have these headlines. We can say, oh, UPS is paying their drivers $170,000 a year, when in reality, I don't think that's going to be true anymore. But they still get they still get this positive, you know, media presence of saying, oh, we're paying our drivers $170,000.
Oh, I
see. Know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But that may not be true in the future.
Yeah, I mean, you know, like, I have no idea, like, about public relations in because, like, this isn't.
It's all marketing.
I don't manage it.
It's all marketing.
Yeah, but I think, I mean, you do need to manage expectations.
Yeah.
You know, like, managing expectations are really important, and yeah, I mean, I'm all for me, like, it's not necessarily controversial. I think about things in a very practical sense, meaning there's so many opportunities out there. Why? Because we're infinitely insatiable. Right? And so, like, the thing is, like, I even, like, had somebody ask me, like, this isn't maybe interesting, maybe this is not controversial, maybe people don't care, ask me about, like, AI taking even software engineering roles, right?
Yeah.
And I said, perhaps, but one, it could liberate us to do other things, learn other things, and if you're a curious person and a learner and a problem solver and somebody who realizes that life always beckons our creativity, I would say that even then, let's say it does take jobs. You ever seen the show Mr. Robot?
Yeah.
Or just under that same theme, man. You think somebody, a human being, is just gonna stand there watching an AI developed by other human beings have fun? Why not develop an AI to hack that AI? And I'm not saying, like, the legality of it is something for our representatives, right? Our market and economics and the companies to decide. What I'm saying, though, and what everybody knows, is that why not? Why imagine that, like, somebody, like, humans are just going to stand by? No, dude, 100%, like, somebody will then, others will figure out, okay, we can hack into this, use it, and then it just becomes, and what that means is, like, by hacking, like, I'm sure they'll get some money or they'll get some information, and then the flow of power, of interest continues, man. And that's what I think is, like, and I said this to this person because they're worried about their job, in a sense. I'm like, you just, again, I'm not proposing any kind of action. I'm saying, like, when you, again, see enough of the world, you can just see, like, what's possible. And then you realize that somebody's going to be on this side or this side or this side and all these sides and all that stuff. And I think that's what makes life fascinating, because then this is where, like, people, and you know, people's livelihoods and lives are at stake.
Yeah.
But then this is the game. This is the game of life, man. And then this is where it's like where, in my opinion, we have people who fight for others who can't fight for themselves.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Like in the sense of like, you can take it from like people in the military, but you could also say like, let's say people are losing jobs due to AI. Maybe, I'm not saying it's a Robin Hood, maybe that's what it's coming to mind. But other people, it's like, okay, well, these people don't know how to tackle the AI problem. This person may be self-interested, they have an ego, they just want to hack it.
Yeah.
Or maybe they are caring about others and they'll fight the fights that other people can't fight for themselves. So that's what I'm saying. It's just like, life's crazy. Life's crazy like that, dude. Like some stuff will go
100%.
down and we'll see like the greatest battles of the 21st century,
we'll see,
bro.
Man.
Maybe we'll get to live it,
Yeah, I hope we do. Well, I think we're running up on time again.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for watching this episode of the Rome's Room Podcast, episode 10. As always, you can catch this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, CastBox, and YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to subscribe, hit that notification bell so you can watch all of these episodes. Daniel, thank you very much. Anything you want to plug or your socials?
What I'd like to say for now, it's like, the career, it's like you gotta like be brave, be bold, ask questions. People are out there. And they either want to help, they want to be a part of your story, and it's fun.
Yeah.
So it just never stops, so keep going.
Thank you guys for watching, and we'll catch you guys next time. Bye.